Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright, speaking, and as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show, while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, we see that things are going from bad to worse for the 45th President of these United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Part of the reason for this is he has decided to start shooting himself and the entire Republican Party in the foot. Part of what I covered on today's earlier Solo Flight Special edition of our state-of-the-art radio program was exactly how Trump was acting in a way that showed that he was truly a part of the establishment, or is that, as Amat put, or I'm drawing a blank on the Freedom Caucus guy there from Michigan, Amat or
Amash, just
Amash, had called him the Trump establishment. Basically, where they were out there pushing for this so-called American Health Care Act, all designed to essentially make it to where the Affordable Health Care Act was replaced with this just god-awful piece of crap known as the American Health Care Act. And we know that Trump went out there and said that he was going to primary out those members of the Freedom Caucus that had stood up to him and said that, they're going to hurt the entire Republican agenda. Folks, we need to pause for a moment and consider this. What does it mean that the Freedom Caucus, by standing up for what their constituents wants, is going to hurt the entire agenda of the Republican Party, if not that the Republican Party's agenda is not in line with that of the American people? That's something we need to keep in mind. That tells me that Trump is all about pushing this detentist agenda, this ideology of pushing the envelope and exponentially expanding upon the scope, breadth, and power of the federal government beyond what our founding fathers ever originally intended for it to be. And that's unfortunate that it's come that way. It's unfortunate that we find ourselves in this predicament, because literally what it tells me, and I think you'll agree with me on this, Jeremy, is that Trump is all about himself, that he's been pushing this agenda for himself. It's everything that we have been warning about for the past, almost 2 years now. And the problem with it is that there are still those who refuse to see it. There are still those who don't want to admit that there is a problem occurring, because they have so far entrenched themselves into this cult of personality, for lack of a better term, and that is playing out against our best interests as well. And what it really tells me is that the Gutless Opposition Party, or GOP, has pulled a fast one on these people that thought Trump was going to be the outsider, that was going to save them, that was going to put everything back onto par and back onto the way that it was supposed to be. It just hasn't come out that way. It just hasn't mapped out that way. It hasn't played out that way. And again, who is it that is going to be left holding the bag at the end of the day if it is not we, the people, in our capacity as United States citizens? That's literally where we are. It's where they have placed us.
The problem is, and again, folks, you know what I mean by problem. There really isn't a solution. Is that Trump thinks he can do whatever he wants. He thinks he's above the law. Now, some folks would say, and make the argument, there is a solution to that. One of my Facebook friends, I think he may be a mutual friend of ours on Facebook, Michael Harrington, posted a picture of some guy in a shirt that had Trump on it, just a silhouette of Trump on the front of the shirt, and it said repeal and replace. I think that's a viable solution. Get rid of him. He's had his chance. He hasn't, as he reached the 100-day mark yet? I don't think so. It's like 76, 77 days, something like that. Close to it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't reached the 100-day mark yet. He's already, farouked too many things, so to speak. We discussed earlier, Randy, this whole, this judge in Kentucky, this federal judge in Kentucky says, no, guess what? You can be held accountable for inciting violence at your rallies. When you tell people, yeah, go ahead and just knock the crap out of them. I'll pay your legal fees. That's inciting violence. That happened March 1st of last year.
March 1st of 2016.
Yeah, so it's been over a year, 1 month, and 1 day. And guess what? Federal judges ruled that he can stand trial for that. He can be held accountable for that. It's inciting violence. That is a felony. Here we have somebody holding the highest office in our land is susceptible and culpable of being held on federal charges.
Yeah.
Folks, he had his chance. He had his chance all last year during the campaign. He blew it.
Yeah. And again,
constitutional compositionists like us, Randy, have said the whole entire time when he was running, nope, he's no different than anybody else. He's attacking conservatives. He's attacking the Constitution. He doesn't value the Constitution. And lo and behold, we were right the whole entire time.
Yeah, and one of the things that it goes to with respect to that, this was a case that was brought against Trump by some of those protesters that were cajoled and bullied and harassed during that Louisville, Kentucky rally. And essentially, he was trying to bring up the defense of freedom of speech. And he was also trying to bring up that it was his right to do that. And the judge said no. And if you recall, I think if you go back into our archives, you'll find that we made absolutely certain and made it clear and known that he really didn't have a leg to stand on there legally, because he doesn't. When you stop and think about it with a modicum of objectivity, you realize that what he's engaged in is something that has no place in an open, honest, but above all free society like that of these United States of America. But again, it's a double standard that I've noticed with Trump. He will constantly sit there and try and force everybody to follow a higher standard than what he follows himself. And it's something that you and I have been accused of, holding people to higher standards than they ought to be, than they normally are. And again, it shows me that he is acting in an arbitrary and capricious fashion. It's this same sort of double standard that we see with respect to the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, that sits there trying to play this out to where they pit us against one another. They're using the same tried and true tactics of the frothing of the mouth Fabian socialist leftists of divide and conquer. That's what it comes down to. That is what they are trying to implement on us. That's what they're trying to force us to accept. And again, it doesn't play out to our best interests. It doesn't help us. It doesn't, promote our narrative or our agenda or what we're hoping to accomplish.
No, it doesn't. In fact, I say, with the way things have gone over, well, every election cycle since, George H.W. Bush was elected, and the way things have gone, maybe in 2020, we should just, I don't know. How about we, the people, make a Match.com account and see if we could just, connect with somebody on Match.com that will fit our guidelines of being the president of the United States. Forget the elections, forget voting. We'll just set up a Match.com account and just do it. Maybe we'll have success that way. I highly doubt it, though. I highly
Yeah.
doubt it.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to fix things, the only way we're going to fix things is if people get back to the Constitution.
Mhm.
Period. That's just the
Mhm.
only way it is. It's the only way it can happen.
Right. And the unfortunate thing is, Jeremy, that neither side of the two mainstay political parties are interested in going back to the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of our shared United States Constitution. They're not interested in doing the right thing for the nation. And that is because they both have carved out a special niche for themselves. They have essentially gone forth into this thinking that they know what's best. And it's this type of elitist mentality, this thumbing their noses at the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, that has alienated huge swaths of the American electorate. They have pigeonholed us into this untenable as well as unsustainable situation. But part of what is happening with Trump, and I know that I mentioned this in the earlier Solo Flight Special edition today, is that he has been making these problems for himself. He's gone out and pointed the finger at the House Freedom Caucus, and he's tried to say that they're the reason that this bill failed. And Benedict Arnold Paul the Monkey Ryan even went so far as to try and say that, look, this American Health Care Act, if it can even be called the American Health Care Act, was really doing what we'd promised we'd do in the past 4 successive elections. But again, nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be. And we see that the Russian allegations keep coming to the surface. If Trump was really as serious of a person as he tries to make himself out to be, if he was really as great of a negotiator as he wants us all to believe that he is, why doesn't he just come clean with this? Why doesn't he take the distraction off of the table? You and I have been accused of falling for this sort of chicanery, that we have somehow fallen into the line of it being that we were distracted. But truth be told, the distractions are coming from Trump. They're coming from the man who is the current commander-in-chief of these United States, and it's something that we can ill afford to ignore. The longer that we attempt to ignore this, the more difficult it is going to be for us to pick up the pieces and to revitalize this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours.
That falls right in line with what we talked about on our last show together, or maybe it was the previous one before that. Doesn't matter. It's there. You can revert back to either the last show or the one prior to that about conspiracy theories. People have called us a conspiracy theorist, saying that, well, you just want to see Trump fail. Well, no, we don't want to see him fail, because if he fails, that means our republic fails. We don't want to see our republic fail. We just don't want him to be at the head of it because he's not qualified. And thus, the conspiracy tags fall in line with this. But here's the thing, folks, this is, pick your poison here. Your old cliches. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world he didn't exist. Yada, yada, yada. Uncle Bob, Bob's your uncle, all this other crap. The thing is, conspiracy theories, what better way to finagle and bamboozle people than to create the whole thing right from the get-go and make the people the butt of the joke? That's what he's doing. To me, he's looking at this as one big joke. And guess who's the butt of the joke? We, the people. Convincing people that he's going to do this, he's going to do that. He's going to, on day one, he's going to get rid of healthcare insurance and everybody's going to be covered, and but the government's going to pay for it, but we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Yeah, he kind of, stuck his smally little hands in his mouth on that one, didn't he? He sure
Mm-hmm.
did, don't you know? And again, with the whole conspiracy theory thing, apparently Trump has ties to Alex Jones.
No, who
Alex
would have
Jones
ever
came out and
guessed?
said that he claims that Donald Trump calls him for advice, that he is a presidential advisor. Kind of, off to the side, but he calls him for advice. And all of this is hinged on apparently this statement back in, what was it, December of 2015.
Yes.
Trump called into his show and said that Alex Jones is a nice guy. And then when he called into the show in December in 2015, he says, "Your reputation is amazing." Trump speaking of Alex Jones. Trump goes on to say, "I will not let you down. You'll be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot." Now, Alex Jones is there's no words to describe him. At least none that would be, family friendly enough for this show. I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning, okay? The guy is a piece of white dried up curmudgeon fecal matter.
He
To
is.
put it, bluntly, and to put it nicely. So I can
Mm-hmm.
understand where his mode of thinking is. Well, Donald Trump says I'm a great guy, I'm a nice guy, and we'll be talking a lot and everything. We're going to be tweeting back and forth, and a lot of sexting going on, and blah 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 blah. Blah. Shut the hell up! Just
Yeah.
shut up!
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
and even if it is
it's
true,
not.
Randy, even if it is true,
Mm.
why would we even allow this? Why would people latch on to this? Of course, people are going to make excuses for their golden quaff. Say, well, maybe Alex Jones, is not a conspiracy theorist anymore. And, maybe that was just a front that he put on, and it was a whole facade. And he's, actually part of going to make America great again.
Yeah, well, how is he going to do that? Eating his microphone when looking at fish people? Folks, you can't make this stuff up. This is the sort of thing that we were trying to avert, trying to avoid throughout that disastrous debacle and fiasco known as the 2016 presidential election cycle. We realized the problem that would rise to the surface is that Donald Trump has not once in his entire 70 years spent here on God's green earth ever really been a conservative. This whole notion that we were going to treat him as a conservative or that he would somehow magically start to govern as a conservative, none of that comes through. None of that makes any sense. Because it literally tells us that what he is doing is that he is custom tailoring a message for whatever particular audience that he is speaking before at any given particular moment in time. And why would he do this? Because, again, it's right down the path of what he has always done. He has always been about self-aggrandizement. He has always been about fluffing himself up, building himself up at the expense of anyone else. And in this case, the ones that he is operating at the expense of is none other than we the people, the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And, I wish this wasn't the case. I wish that we could sit there and say that he was actually going out and proactively doing the things that he said he would do, and that he was being good for the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty. But nothing could be further from the truth. Look, it's already been stated that there's not going to be any funding for this fabled border wall at any time in in the near future, that this is just once again more of that political kabuki theater that we've seen come to the surface time and again with respect to the mafioso quafioso. And how is that going to play out for we the people? I'll tell you, it's not going to play out well. We warned that there would be pain if this is what came to the forefront. We warned that this would work against our best interests. And the way that he's been attacking conservatives, the way that he's now reaching across the aisle to work with Chuck the Schmuck Schumer to try and get a health care deal. Yeah. I mean, how the hell is that going to help the American people? How the hell is that going to, quote unquote, make America great again? I'll tell you right now, it's not going to. None of that is going to unfurl in a way that is beneficial for we the people. None of that is going to be something that builds us into a stronger, more robust republic. It's all just going to work against us each and every time.
I can't help but shudder to think as to why individuals still think that this guy is the second coming of the Cheeto Jesus. I don't get it. I don't know what kind of irreversible brain damage have these individuals suffered. And second question, when we figure out what that is, why can't we use that as, a weapon to defeat ISIS? Because it would be a hugely tremendous weapon. It'd be a greatly weapon.
Yeah.
I'm getting a migraine in my eyeballs trying to figure this stuff out. It's really driving me nuts. Why can't people just go back to the simplistics of being an ultimate wielder of sovereignty? Here is the rules that the government must abide by, both state and federal. Why do they have to abide by these rules? Because we the people say so. And these are the repercussions and consequences for failure to do that. You can't hold people accountable if you're willing to negate and throw away any authority you have to hold them accountable. So what do you have left? A bunch of mindless curmudgeons that eventually turn into white, dried up pieces of fecal matter, rotting on some old guy's lawn. Hey, you kids, get off my lawn. Stop. Wake the hell up. It's very simple. We have a document, and Siri needs to just shut up. God, I'm tired of that.
Your phone's still trying to help you.
Yeah, the phone. Apple.
Intrusively so.
Anyway, the problem is, and again, I see this as a problem because I don't see truly a viable solution at this point. There's a solution, but it's not a viable solution because nobody is willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Solutions are only viable if somebody has the ambition and inclination to carry it out.
Mm-hmm.
I know you and I both have that ambition and inclination. I know Nelson Ward has that inclination. I know our friend Wayne. I know John freaking Beacon Magula, Chris Zeller. I know these individuals, Donna Cephas. We all have the ambition and inclination. And I would say, dare I say, fortitude to carry this out. Why is this so hard? Why is it so hard for people to understand this? This is what gives me the migraine in my eyeballs, folks.
Well, I'll tell you why people are struggling with it. They're struggling with it because they don't want to face the facts. They don't want to face the reality that, hey, maybe they made a mistake in supporting this guy. And again, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, are not attacking those who decided to go out and vote for Donald Trump just because they thought the specter of Hillary Rotten Clinton as president of these United States of America was just too god awful to stand. And, I understand that fear. I understand it. It wasn't enough for me to overcome any second thoughts I had with respect to Donald Trump. We see that Trump is still doubling down on these efforts to push the Republican Party to the left. I will never forget the fact that he stood in front of the cameras of the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and boldly proclaimed that, look, it's the Republican Party, not the Conservative Party. He was essentially telling us that he didn't need conservatives. This is the same thing that we have been complaining about for generations now, folks. The gutless opposition party's detente wing, what is known in the common American vernacular as the so-called establishment, has been working against the best interests of the core constituency of the party for as far back as I can recall. Because I remember George H.W. Bush, read my lips, no new taxes, then calling the NRA a bunch of jackbooted thugs, voodoo economics, all of this crap. It all added up to what he was pushing for was this detentist agenda. It was a greater state, more state power. It was a continuation of the Nixonian era. That's why I call them detentists. When you stop and think about it, what do I mean by detente? Well, the term detente means live and let live. It was the position that Republicans like Richard Milhouse Nixon took with respect to the Soviet Union. Instead of saying, damn it all, we are the United States of America, we need to overcome these enemies that are standing against us, it was, we need to have mutually assured destruction. That way, we live, they live, everybody's happy, the commies are going to sit there and sing Kumbaya frickin' Ya, waving the hammer and sickle of peace. Well, it's just not how it works. It never worked that way. And, mark my words, the Soviets were always looking for ways to undermine us. They always were. Why? Because they are of that radical left-wing ideology and philosophy that is based on destruction. Show me one aspect or attribute of any left-wing philosophy or ideology or political movement that is based on construction, based on building things, based on improving things. You can't. Sure, they'll pay lip service to it, they'll proclaim that that's what they're doing, but when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, each and every time, all they can do is destroy. That's why Mao Zedong there in Red China had the Cultural Revolution, where they sought to delete and eradicate the cultural history of China that stretched back millennia. It's no different than the Islamo-fascist barbarians in ISIS that are running around destroying all of these great and ancient monuments. Why are they doing that? Why? Other than they don't want there to be anything that can question their dark and twisted machinations, which can only be called barbarism or theft by any other name.
Well, and see, let's take a look at another staple in history, shall we? Adolf Hitler, when he came to power, he had National Socialists, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There was also communists there in Germany. Now, communism and socialism, they're pretty much, two of the same fingers on the same hand of, decrepit plagues on society. All right. But Hitler didn't want the communists to be there because it would interrupt that. He wanted the feud. He created the feud. I think what's going on, and people are going to say, see, I told you he's a conspiracy theorist. Trump's whole thing of, getting Sarah, I'm a walking fishing lure, Palin. Remember that,
dress? Yeah.
That shirt that she had, god awful. Ivanka would never let that in her clothing line. Blah, blah, blah. Shut up. when she sits there and says, "Oh, we're going to kick ISIS ass, don't you know?" And Trump
Holes.
claims he's going to do the same thing. But yet, here it is, not even 100 days in. And what has he done to solve the issue with ISIS? Nothing. Why? Because he still wants them to exist. Why? Much like Hitler wanted them to exist as far as the communists go. See, Trump wants to set up his Trump totalitarian regime. He wants to establish himself as a supreme leader. He even says it so much when he has talked about and boasted about walking into a war room or up to the negotiating table and says, "When I talk, they listen. I have a tremendous voice, and I have to have this voice because my hands are so smally, I can't even sign the contracts." Why would he want this? Why would he want all of this to come around? He has bamboozled the American people long enough. He's made all of these campaign promises, said he was going to do this, this, and the other thing, and hasn't done any of it. None of it. None of it is existent. He hasn't gone after ISIS, has no real plans of building the wall, not going to repeal Obamacare, not going to do it, let him be prudent. It's not. Why? But yet people still, oh, you have to give him a chance. You have to give him a chance. His 100 days isn't up yet. We just don't know. Again, I harken back to the example of hostage situation, hostage negotiators. Well, we're going to give the hostages a chance to, give them 100 days to figure out if they're going to lay down their weapons or not and actually surrender. And, then the problem will be solved. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no clue on how to fix any of this stuff. Why? He doesn't want to fix any of this stuff. He wants these problems to exist. Why? Because it's going to fatten his pockets. He even said if he ran for president and got elected, he would be the president that makes the most money in office. Which, by the way, is actually, against the law. You're supposed to divest all your holdings and all this other stuff. And people say, well, there's no law about that. And, that's just kind of a traditional thing. Well, again, here's the thing. He's doing all of these things to, A, skirt the law, which he's done his whole criminal adult life. B, wants to disrupt the flow of things. Why? Because he hates American exceptionalism. He doesn't think it's a good thing. It's a bad thing. Tremendously bad. It offends other people. I don't care. I don't care who gets offended. I'm an American. I'm exceptional. I have the helmet to prove it. And yes, mine does come fully equipped with a chin strap.
But
But it's my
it
helmet.
tells me, yeah, I'll tell you this. What it comes down to is Trump has his own agenda. His own agenda that's all about himself, that's nothing about the American people, as you said. And again, why does it play out that way? It's because he saw a way to secure himself with it. We see that he's put Ivanka into an official position at the White House, even though it's allegedly without pay, just as his own position in the White House has been allegedly without pay. All of this is the subterfuge. All of this is there to try and weasel out of what is truly going on, what is truly being problematic for the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty. It's about forwarding his goals for himself. I mean, all you have to do is look at the way that he's run his business. Did he not go out and say that he was the king of debt, that he loved debt as long as it was spending someone else's money? Now, maybe that's just me focusing on pedantics here, but I don't think so. We already know that with their tax reform that they want to move to after this healthcare debacle, that they are trying to push that $1 trillion stimulus infrastructure spending package with it. That they're trying to include that as an intrinsic part of that package, as if that is going to be beneficial to the American people. But again, I thought that one of the things that the Republican Party did, both in the 2008 and again in the 2012 presidential election cycle, was to say that the government spending was out of control. We know that Ryan is sitting there saying that they're going to have to once again push up the debt ceiling. Well, now, I thought that the Republican Party was supposed to be the party that was going to rein in all this nonsense. That the Republican Party was the party that was going to be the fiscally responsible party. Well, I just haven't seen it. It has not been coming to the forefront. It has not been even suggested. Did you hear anybody say that we were going to rein in government spending in the 2016 election? I didn't. Just as we haven't heard them mention the Constitution, just as we haven't heard them mention anything that is conservative. Why? Because he's not a conservative, and because the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, are simply not conservatives either. And unless and until we begin to wake up to this reality, these things are just going to continue to spiral out of control. It's going to put us in an untenable as well as unsustainable situation. That is where we find ourselves right here and right now, and it shows no signs of improving within the foreseeable future.
I'll take it a step further. Those same Republicans in 2008 and 2012, aren't they the same ones that all these cocksuckers, the diehard Trump supporters, he could do no wrong, we have to bow at the altar of the Quaff Commando, the Quaff in Chief, the Cheeto Jeebus? Aren't they the ones that the whole premise for voting for him is, well, we're tired of the establishment, we're tired of the politicians. We don't want a politician in office. But yet, he wants a stimulus package. Goes right along with what they were railing against. He is doing the exact opposite of what they elected him to do. They wanted to put him in office because he's an outsider. And he could do no wrong because he's the Quaff commander. He is establishment. He always has been establishment. In fact, he is more establishment than the whole entire establishment times 10. Why? He was Hillary Clinton's biggest donor in, what was it, 2012?
No, not that.
Campaign donor?
No. It was 2006. 06.
Oh, 2006. Okay. So they voted for somebody because they don't want a politician in doing all the politician things that politicians do, like, growing the government, raising the debt ceiling, creating, unnecessary spending and stimulus packages, yada, yada, yada. And yet Trump is doing the exact same thing that they were preaching about or preaching against in order to justify them voting for him. You people are stupid. Seriously, beyond stupid. Not to insult stupid people, but guess what? It's just, why? Why? Are you're so clouded with the dandruffiness of his crappy flakes floating around like little sparkles in your eyes? Oh, he can do no wrong. He's the Cheeto Jeebus. Yeah, we have to bow to him.
Gives a whole new meaning to Frosted Flakes.
Oh, I just, why? Stop being stupid. Stop being stupid. If the founding fathers were alive here today, they would make it a point to tar and feather you, amongst other things, because of your stupidity. Stop. Start behaving like an American citizen. Start behaving like you have the authority, which you do. You just don't want to do it because you're afraid of actually, taking responsibility for yourselves.
Imagine that. Imagine being able to, once again, as a nation and people, stand for something. When was the last time that we, as the United States of America actually stood for anything. It's been quite a while. Um, when you stop and think about it, the way that both sides of the political spectrum have positioned themselves in such a position as to stand against, and in deliberate fashion against, the hopes, dreams, and future aspirations of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, it's just beyond belief. It tells me that there has been this well orchestrated effort to infiltrate both of the mainstay titular political parties in the United States to once again try and just embrace this sort of chicanery that truly has no place in an open, honest, but above all free society like that of the United States. And what Trump has done here is he has shown that he's more bravado than anything else. He's more of a braggadocious little weasel than anything else. And here's the funny thing. Dennis Plagler, or Plager, or however you say that guy's name, what is it? Prager?
I Prager, Plager,
Yeah.
guy in a Gordon flogging.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter because he went out there and he said, yeah, the House Freedom Caucus essentially ensured that the so-called Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, what's known in the common American vernacular as Obamacare, to stay. That they should have just sided with Trump, that it was the lesser of two evils. You see, they are literally trying to have that erroneous, that false doctrine and narrative come to the forefront of everything else, not just within the election cycles anymore. And you know that we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have decried this erroneous notion. We have shown that it is a dangerous, detrimental thing to embrace that each and every time because it slowly, yet relentlessly, in incremental fashion, pushes the nation ever further to the left. And the further we go to the left, the more difficult it becomes to spark an American renaissance, to revitalize this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. And when you have both sides of the political spectrum working towards this end goal, it is only going to spill over and be disastrous. It's only going to make our work that much more difficult. It's only going to prolong the suffering that we are encountering in this country. And again, I don't see any relief to it, at least within the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And you know what, folks? If people are offended by me calling these cocksuckers stupid, well, the only people that should be offended are people who are legitimately stupid because these cocksuckers aren't smart enough to be stupid. And if anybody wants to, say anything about it, that's fine. You can send your hate mail to, whatever, whatever media venue you like that I utilize. You can catch me on Facebook. You can send it over to Twitter at Lex underscore at underscore Virtute on Twitter. It's fine. I don't care. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of people being offended by the truth. You don't like the truth? Do something about it. The only issue with that is there really isn't anything you can do about it. Therefore, it doesn't make it an issue, it makes it a problem because there's no solution to trying to undermine the truth or not adhering to the truth. The truth shall set you free. So those people listening are offended by being called stupid because you want to bow at the altar of the Cheeto Jeebus. I don't care. I really don't care. Again, you can forward your hate mail. I'm not hard to find. I'm not going to give my personal address because, I'm just not going to do it. But again, if you need it, I'm sure you can find it. It's not hard. But I say all of this because it needs to be said. We have to start calling things for what they are. And if people don't want to listen, then I'm going to tell you right now, you are doomed to repeat the history. You've brought this on yourself. You own this. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to own it, too bad. It's not something that you can sell or give away.
You,
You are part of the problem in creating this. You are part of the problem why our country, our republic, is suffering the way that it is. Because you are allowing a mealy mouthed, smally hand little quafftator to try and run ramshot over everybody. He sees no value in you. What don't you understand about this? He does not see any value, intrinsic or inherent, in the Constitution. You, as an ultimate wielder of sovereignty, an American citizen endowed by the Lord God above with inalienable rights and insured of those rights by the Constitution, he sees no value in it, which means he sees no value in your rights, which means he sees no value in you.
you know,
And you're going to stand
it's
idly by and allow this to happen.
it's interesting that you bring that up because one of the things that happened earlier that I also discussed in today's earlier Solo Flight Special Edition was that Matt Drudge made one of those rare appearances coming out of his bunker with that straw hat on for his straw man arguments to make an appearance with Michael Weiner Savage. And during this little foray out into the quote-unquote savage nation, or just savage deflation, it was mainly that he was going out and saying that he believed that there are elements within Congress that are working against Trump, and that Trump is going to have to overcome those things, that Trump is not using his power of character, his strength of personality to the fullest extent that's available. Now, folks, that's not what the president is supposed to do. This is Matt Drudge once again going off and licking windows thinking that they're lollipops. It's just not the way that reality works. He's ridden the short bus a little too much. I think that's part of the reason why he's so afraid to have his face be seen. I think that's why he tries to dart in shadows. He even went out and said that Twitter has such a small audience that he doesn't utilize it very often. Yet, what does he do when he wants some major thing to be driven to his website? Oh, he goes out and he temporarily puts up a Twitter post. And then after 13 hours or however long his pre-subscribed period is, he takes it down. You see, there's something about the way that he engages with that just tells me that he's off his rockers. It tells me that he is out there conflating himself or inflating himself in ways that don't make sense, that he's not really standing for anything anymore, and that he has basically trashed his relevancy. He has pushed himself to the point of being nothing short of irrelevant. And we've mentioned this before. If you go back to the 2008 election, he threw his weight behind McCain. Again in 2012, like his good buddy, little orphan Annie Yap Yap Toto Coulter the Floozy, he threw his weight behind Mitt Romney. And you remember he tried to bury any and all negative stories about Romnicans. And then in 2016, he was pushing Trump. He literally came out and said that Trump saved the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. What? Okay, yeah, he gave them ratings. But is that good that he saved the media while he's killing the republic in the process? Is that literally what we have fallen to now? Is that literally what we are now going to sit there and herald as some great accomplishment in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours? Because if that's the case, then we're in a lot worse shape than I originally speculated.
Matt Drudge just needs to go away. Crawl back into that little bunker, batten down the hatches, Katie bar the door. Don't worry, Drudgy. We'll take care of this. Because it's obvious you severely lack the fortitude to do anything. See, you're part of the problem. You're feeding into this false dichotomy of voting for the lesser of two evils. You did it with McCain. You did it with Romney. Now, I voted for John McCain in 2008. A lot of people know that. I'm not shy about telling people I voted for McCain in 2008. And then after coming home, doing what I feel is a civic obligation and duty, making sure that the voting process stayed right and true in accordance to the Constitution, people's rights weren't violated. I went and worked the voting polls. I was tired. I've been there since 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Came home after the polls closing, home to about 10 or 11 o'clock that night. I fell asleep on my couch waiting for the results to come in. And I woke up to John McCain. Not my friends. My friends. Barack Obama, he's a good guy, my friends. I puked. I literally puked because I voted for him. And then his concession speech saying that Obama was a good guy, he's going to do what seems to be right for America, blah, blah, all this other. It was at that point in time that I decided that no more and never again. I do not hold party allegiance with any party, with no party. My allegiance is to the Constitution. First of all, my allegiance is to God, then to the Constitution, then to my country, then to my family. And people ask, why in that order? Because without God, we wouldn't be able to have our allegiance to the Constitution. Without the Constitution, we wouldn't have a republic to have allegiance held to. And without that republic, we would not have a place for my family to reside in, to learn and be raised with morals, ethics, and values rooted in the natural law tenets. It has to be that way. It has to be chronological that way, succinct. Why? Because that is the way it is supposed to be.
Yes, it is.
And people have an issue with it. I don't care if they have an issue with it. I will not ever vote for the lesser of two evils ever again. That they do not pass my litmus test in following and adhering to the Constitution to the best of their ability. That means showing genuine and true acts of trying to follow the Constitution, to not subvert it, not say that there's no inherent or intrinsic value in it, but legitimately trying to follow the Constitution to the best of their ability. That means that they have to have some smarts and they have to know what it is. Then they'll get my vote. I don't care if they're a Democrat. I don't care if they're a Republican. A lot of people would say, "Oh, I'll never vote for a Democrat." You know what? I'd vote for Zell Miller in a heartbeat. You know why? Because he actually follows the Constitution, or did follow when he was in office.
And alive. I think he's passed away, hasn't he?
I think he's passed away too. But the point remains. Our allegiance, the only thing we are supposed to hold allegiance to on this earth that is not heavenly, that is man-made, although the Constitution is divinely inspired, is the Constitution. As American citizens. Nothing else. We don't hold allegiance to each other. We don't hold allegiance to our government. Our Constitution is our government.
Well, right. And
it is the supreme law of the land.
Right. And it goes right back to the poetic language contained within the preamble to our shared Constitution. When it starts with those immortal words, "we the people," that's stating in no uncertain terms actually who it is that owns this government. It's telling us who it is that really are the popular sovereigns. When we look at the history of the term sovereignty, it was originally rooted in a singular individual, that of the king. The king was known as the sovereign. And why were coins and things of that nature referred to as sovereigns? Because it depicted the king. What was so revolutionary about what our founding fathers had accomplished with the inception of this nation over 200 plus years ago was that they essentially changed the entire impetus of sovereignty. Sovereignty rested in the hands of the people. That had never been tested before on God's green earth. It had never been attempted before. The American experiment in representational government all centers around this notion of we the people being the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty. It's why we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have oft times reiterated on previous episodes that when we talk about the government and the fact that the federal government, based on the natural order of things or the natural law tenets, being one that is of limited powers, it's limited because we didn't delegate all of our power and authority as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty to the government. Our founding fathers necessarily viewed government as a necessary evil. They didn't believe in entrusting it with carte blanche to act at any given point in time with just unlimited power and authority. It has to be constrained. But when you look at the way that Trump is acting, when you look at the way that the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, has been acting since assuming the reins of political power in the two major branches of government, they are not acting as though they believe that the power is delegated from the people. They are abusing their power. They are abusing their authority, which means, above all, they are abusing we the people. And, it's as the father of the Constitution, James Madison, said, it wouldn't be through one fell swoop that we would lose our liberties. Rather, it would be through the gradual, quiet usurpations of our liberty that we would one day awaken to find ourselves in the midst of tyranny, despotism, but above all, oppression. Well, we are fast on that route, folks. We are fast headed down that road, and the 45th president of these United States of America has been pushing the pedal to the metal. That is where we are. And it shows no signs of improving within the foreseeable future. None whatsoever.
Yeah. It's disgusting is what it is.
Hmm.
It's absolutely disgusting. I mean, Randy, we're in our early to mid 30s, okay? And I can remember growing up picking up different books, reading about the founding fathers, reading about Jefferson and the Barbary Pirates, reading about uh, James Madison and everything that he did, reading about William Penn, all these individuals, and thinking to myself as a young kid, wow, this is actually probably the greatest place to live on God's green earth. No other country has what we have. We're able to think as we choose freely. We're able to voice our concerns. We're able to defend ourselves. We're able to we have rights. All of that's going away. Why is it going away? It's because of those doctrines that we always hammer on: political correctness, moral relativism, revisionist history, indoctrination of the youth. It's like someone took Miracle Grow and just dumped a whole factory warehouse full of the crap right on top of those doctrines, and they're out of control. They've gone rampant. You can't say anything disparaging against Donaldus Julius Caesar Trumpolini. Well, he's the president now. You can't talk bad about him. That's sedition. Wrong. Wrong. I have the right to say what my discontent is with him. It is my God-given right. And nobody on this earth is big enough to take it from me. And to pull a line from, our first Air Marshal Nelson, I'll throw you off the planet if you think so.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. That's how it works. We have to get back to that. If we don't get back to that, again, I'm reminded of what my senior year in high school English teacher, the poster he had on his wall. The beatings will continue until morale is improved. People thought they had it rough under Obama. They thought it was bad under George W. Bush. For some reason, people think it was actually okay under Clinton, but that was just delusional. Maybe they, got sprinkled with fairy dust from, Hale Bop or something. I don't know. But you think that was bad? Bad times are coming. People just haven't realized it yet. They want to say, "Oh, at least he's not Hillary Clinton. At least she didn't get elected." You know what? That is probably the most asinine and idiotic thing that I've ever heard anybody say. At least she's not elected. It's better that he got elected than she did. Really? Okay, so you're willing to hand him a live hand grenade to let him pull the pin, slap the spoon on it, and then just drop it right where you stand. Because that's essentially what's going to happen. At least with her, she would be able to, she'd toss it away from her and run the opposite direction. No, he's not even smart enough to do that. Because that's what he wants. He wants his own tyrannical regime.
Yeah.
You can't say the president's a tyrant. Yes, I can, and I just did. Nobody's going to do anything about it because I have the right.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. We know that General Michael Flynn is basically wanting to go out there and seek immunity to go talk about the Russian deal. And what's so funny about this, I know that everybody wants to go out there and say that this is somehow fake news or that this is something that is just designed to harm Trump in the long run. But what it's literally about, Jeremy, is that he knows there's something there. He knows that there is going to be a problem. And remember that both he and Trump said of Clinton aides that had sought immunity, that's just proof positive that they're guilty. But now, when it comes back to reflect upon themselves, all of a sudden they are playing let's move the goalposts. Why is it that we always find ourselves in this predictable situation where whenever it applies to him, he tries to cut and run? He tries to duck out of Dodge, get the hell out of Dodge as quickly as possible, and deflect at any available opportunity. It's staggering, really, when you stop and think about it with a modicum of objectivity, because what it tells us is that they are operating in such a form and fashion as to literally allow him to get away with anything. That's how they want this to be. You notice that Drudge and some of those other little flunkies that have been orchestrating the bizarre ascension of the New York billionaire, businessman, real estate tycoon, all-around Vulgarian, and now 45th president of these United States of America, Donald J. Trump, they always go forth and say it's not his fault. You notice they didn't want to label this Trump care. Like everybody labeled the so-called Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act as Obamacare, nobody wanted to label this Trump care. Oh, it's Ryan care. It's Rhino care. It's Swamp care. Oh, this is all just part of Trump's bigly, boldly, beautiful plan to make America great again. You just don't see the big picture yet. Bovine and equine excrement. I see the big picture. I have seen the big picture because both Jeremy and I and our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, we took the time that was necessary to dig into the history of Trump. We took the time that was necessary to find out all of the skeletons that dwell within that bigly walk-in closet of his that it might as well be called a verrucking cemetery. We did that. But we were dismissed for that. We were discarded for that. We were told that we are unpatriotic because we refused to fall for a tyranny of false unity. Well, enough is enough. I'm sick of the vitriol. I'm sick of the garbage. At what point is it going to take for people to wake up and realize that what Donald Trump has been doing is not in their best interests? That what Donald Trump has been doing has been detrimental for them, for their fundamental and inalienable God-given rights, and is harming this country overall? You know, I would have thought, and mea culpa for me being a bit wrong on this, that more people would have started waking up by this point, by this juncture in our nation's relatively brief yet illustrious history. But the more I think about it, and the more that I attempt to come to terms with this, the more that I am struck by reality, slapped across the face, for lack of a better term for reality, the more I realize that people just don't want to wake up. They just want to accept this as the truth. They want this to be the new established norm in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours.
It's gone even deeper than that, Randy.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
actually people. There's actually people trying to write a book, albeit, you know, if it would have been written in crayon, maybe they would have been able to understand it better. But trying to write a book on Facebook here, trying to chastise the Freedom Caucus. Really? They're saying that this particular individual says that he's disgusted seeing the Freedom Caucus all over the TV pretending that they helped preserve Obamacare for your own good. First of all, that wasn't their intention, and it went way over this guy's head. And you notice there I hesitated. I'm really learning.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't their intention at all. That just happens to be another label that Trump, the establishment, and all these other people, even the Democrats, are saying now of the Freedom Caucus. Well, they preserved Obamacare. No, they didn't. They took a stand against something that was unconstitutional. You want to say, well, they preserved Obama? No, they didn't. They stood in the way of something that would be, well, nothing more than just another rehash of what's already there. Just worded differently. Maybe this time with brightly colored crayons. You know, the neon ones. Maybe it was written with that one that Crayola killed off. Whatever color that was.
To the white, the special white or whatever the hell.
The white dandelion or whatever crap.
Yeah, it was dandelion. Yeah.
Hippie fingers. Wax hippie fingers. You know, stop with this crap.
Well,
The Freedom Caucus actually did the right thing.
Of course they did.
They did the right thing. Because they understood what is at stake here. They know what's at stake. They don't want any of this.
Well, and here's the thing.
We, the people, should not want any of this.
Here's the thing. All of this talk about the Freedom Caucus supposedly allowing Obamacare to continue. No, here's the thing. The majority Rhino control have the bill that was unilaterally passed in 2015. They have locked it up in committee. They have locked it up to ensure that it is not going up for a vote, that it is not being considered. This is one that would completely overturn the so-called Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. Why is it that they have assumed that position? Well, the answer to this rather rhetorical question should be both open and obvious. The reason that they don't want to move on it is because they desire keeping the federal government intruding upon one of the most intimate, private aspects of the facets of our daily lives, our health care. You see, this isn't about providing the American people with affordable health care. It's not about providing them with high quality or standards of treatment. This is about power, manipulation, but above all, control. The gutless opposition party, or GOP, is operating in such a form or facet as to try and cram this down the throats of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty completely against their will. And this is what you and I were warning our cherished listening passengers and audience members about basically from our second episode on, about all of this chicanery using the language of quote-unquote repeal and replace. What was that about? That was about keeping the federal apparatus of all of this in place. It was about foisting this against the American people. And literally what they are doing is they are seeing the mandates, they are seeing the penalties, they're seeing all of this as a great way to fill the coffers of the federal government. In other words, our federal government has become addicted to this inability to live within their means. You know, if we were to keep our personal checkbooks and balance our personal checkbooks in the way that the federal government attempts to run and budget itself, we'd be thrown in jail for fraud. We would.
Mm-hmm. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about the whole notion of them, pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Again, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. See, all this talk about repeal and replace and the sessions of Congress to do all this, all that is just to have a meeting about a meeting. That's all. Just a meeting about a meeting. And in that meeting about a meeting, they're going to discuss what other kind of meetings about meetings they're going to have in future meetings about meetings. That's all it is. They have no intention of acting on the benefit and the best interest of the United States citizens. Period. If they did, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No.
John Roberts wouldn't be looked upon by myself and others included as one of the weakest individuals to ever sit there on the court. And yes, I would tell that right to his face. Why? Because I can. And I don't care, because I'd be able to back it up. That his opinion, well, is much like his posterior. Stinks horribly. And see, that's the thing. I always found that interesting, Randy, when the rulings are referred to as opinions. It's actually subjective in a way, if you think about it, because their opinion is that what it's supposed to do is their opinion given should be the ruling, okay? And then you have the dissenting opinion. Well, the opinion should be that of, yep, this follows the Constitution. Not with this case, with Obamacare. Robert's opinion was that it followed the Constitution, yet he was wrong. Absolutely wrong. The dissenting opinion, one of the dissenting opinions, I believe, given by
Scalia.
Clarence Thomas was absolutely not. This does not follow the Constitution. Therefore, if there's a dissenting opinion and shows irrevocably that it does not follow the Constitution, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that should not be a ruling. That ruling shall not stand. The Constitution says so as much. Any laws made, or which shall be made, or any rulings by any court at any level, contrary to the Constitution, notwithstanding, meaning there's no standing for them to be enforced or to have any weight at all as law, meaning they are void. But yet, they want to repeal that and replace it with something else. Why? It has no standing to exist. They do not have the authority to implement this type of legislation. Oh, but it's for the general welfare of the people. No, it's not, because the general welfare only pertains to the functionality of the government.
I know.
If that was the case, and if for the general welfare of the people, if that clause actually applied to the people of the United States, then guess what? It would be in my best interest and my general welfare for me to have a 5,500 square foot home with an indoor swimming pool and a brand new truck to drive for each day of the week, and 2 for Sunday, just because Sundays are special.
Yeah. Well, it also goes to this whole notion that what they're essentially doing is giving the federal government a general police power, the ability to legislate for the health, safety, and morality of their constituents. But, folks, again, when we look at the very design of our federal government as laid out and mandated by the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of our shared United States Constitution, we see that there is no such general police power afforded to the federal government. The federal government is a government by necessity of limitations. It is one that must, trace its power to rightfully rule back to a specific power that is expressly enumerated unto a particular branch of the federal government by the Constitution itself. This really isn't rocket surgery. We don't need Dr. Ben, quick, get me a new suit, I'm a victim Carson to figure this out. He'd cross the wires anyway. Sir Shanks-a-Lot is not necessarily the best when it comes to understanding the constitutional application of government, the constitutional form of government, and the way that the federal government was designed. After all, this is the same man who sat there and said that we ought to put the Second Amendment on the bargaining table, except that when it comes to our fundamental and inalienable rights, which were endowed to us by our Creator, who happens to be none other than the God of nature himself, those things are non-negotiable. But we see that Trump wants to negotiate everything. We see that Trump now wants to reach across the political spectrum to Chuck the Schmuck Schumer, whom he has repeatedly admitted that he likes better than the Republican leadership. Why? Because, they'll come along and they'll see how beautifully, bigly, wonderfully our healthcare bill is. It's bigger than my hands, and therefore it must be good. Stop. Stop. We cannot be run by petulant children. The moment that we allow this nation to be run by petulant children is the moment that we allow our constitutionally endowed, federalist, representative, Republican form of government to fall by the wayside. And do we really want to be the first generation to allow this American experiment in representational government to fail? Just think of how harshly the annals of history would judge us. Because what is it that is one of our paramount duties, obligations, but above all responsibilities in our capacity as United States citizens, if it is not to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and for our posterity? In other words, for the up-and-coming generations, and indeed those generations which have yet to be born. Unless and until we begin to really realize that, and unless and until we begin to truly place this nation back on to being a nation of laws, not of men, acknowledging equal protection and due process under the law, these problems are going to fester. This cancer is going to metastasize on the body politique of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. And all of those people that are sitting there attempting to constantly move the goalposts are going to be shocked and horrified when they come to the gross realization that, oh my God, what have we allowed to come to fruition? How did we reach this point? Well, the answer to that rather rhetorical question should be both open and obvious. We have allowed the federal government to expand exponentially, to go out of the proper constraints and limitations that are mandated upon it by the Constitution. You see, folks, this is why it is absolutely imperative to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution and thereby our fundamental and inalienable God given rights. Because without those rights, we are truly left with nothing. And we must be proactive in the maintenance and safeguarding of those rights if we are serious about re-establishing American prosperity.
I couldn't have said that better myself, Randy. I really couldn't have. But I want to add to it. I want to go back to the people that aren't smart enough to be stupid. Again, if I haven't said it before, stop!
Yeah.
Stop being stupid. Okay? Stop trying to be stupid because you're never going to reach that level. All right? Just stop. Here's what you do. You go down to your local bookstore, whether it's a national conglomerate big box bookstore or just a mom and pop shop, or if you can't peel yourself out of your mommy's basement and off of the crusted underoos that you got for your 12th birthday or opened up on Christmas when you were 12, whichever one that you're still wearing and they've become a part of you, you can always hop online. Get yourself a copy of the Constitution. Read it. Aside from that, get yourself a thesaurus and a dictionary. Come across the word you don't understand? Look it up. It's not hard, it's not difficult. Surely you can handle that. After all, you are capable of flicking the switch to turn your computer on, aren't you? People need to come to the understanding and the realization that, just as you said, and just as I've said numerous times in the past, without our rights, we are left with nothing. We have nothing. We have no leg to stand on. We have no purpose to endure. Let me ask you guys a serious question. And I'm talking to, again, the people that are trying to reach the level of stupidity. Do you really want all of this to be placed squarely on your shoulders and suffer the brunt of the burden and the fault for our republic dying? I'm not going to have any blame in that. I'm not going to have any fault in that. I know Randy's not. I know Nelson Ward's not. Donna Cephas sure isn't. Our friend Wayne, John freaking Beacon Magula, Chris Zeller, members of the Freedom Caucus, they're not looking at having that place on their shoulders. Why? Because we all view this as an obligation. It's a responsibility. It is a duty to ourselves and our posterity, our children and our children's children for future generations to come. We cannot and must not and shall not allow that to happen. Now, if you want to stand idly by and you want to continue this dumb faruquery that you have going on, you have two choices. Run and hide, bury your heads in the sand, and get the hell out of our way. Or try and stand in our way and suffer the consequences of that. We will not be at fault for this. We do not own this disaster that we have now. Well, it hasn't even been 100 days. You can't call it a disaster. It was a disaster when he opened up his gaping quaff and decided to jump into the race. It became a disaster then. Why wasn't FEMA notified? The whole 9 yards of full gamut. You need to stop. You need to wake up. You need to grow up. Most assuredly, if you went to the voting booth and you voted, that means you're a grown adult. Certainly, you know how to make decisions. And again, as mentioned before, if you're not capable of that, you can always open up a Match.com account and maybe somebody on there you can find to align with and put them up as president. But
President
I highly doubt it.
Flake.
Yeah.
You know, what it comes down to is what we all, as a nation and people, have to stand for. And that is our fundamental and inalienable rights. I know that Jeremy's mentioned this. I know that our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, has mentioned this. I know that I've mentioned it. But again, it's that it is so important that we maintain that which has separated us and distinguished us and differentiated us from any other people on the face of God's green earth. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain fundamental and unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What does all of that mean? It means that we, in our capacity as United States citizens, are endowed with those rights. It means that no rightful, legitimate, earthly authority can take those away without due process and equal protection under the law. It means that the United States of America is a nation of laws and not of men. All of these things used to have deep, heartfelt meanings to the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. All of this used to be something that was intrinsically and inherently understood by the American people. But thanks to the meticulous and incessant efforts of the historical revisionists that have infested our ivory towers of academia from coast to coast and border to border, thanks to the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, and to all of the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists that have done everything within their power to weaken this nation, we have begun to lose sight of all of that which has made us a strong, robust, and dare I say, resolute people. The Constitution is everything. Unlike what Edmund Kozak said during the 2016 election cycle over there at the Lifezet site for Laura Ingram, who said that we mistook the Constitution for perfection. No. See, we have to redirect his attention back to the opening lines to the preamble to our shared United States Constitution. We the people, in order to create a more perfect. More is a qualifier. Sort of like how moron is a qualifier for Edmund Kozak. And I certainly hope that his career is going to be ended quite soon. But folks, these are things we cannot ignore. These are things that have to be addressed. And unfortunately, we have allowed this to go on for far too long. But here's the thing. We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, are dedicated to providing you with practicable, real-world solutions. What are those practicable, real-world solutions? Well, it's the Constitution. That's the key that's been with us since the inception of this nation, well over 2 centuries ago. It is what will set us free. It is what will put us back onto the path to prosperity. But we have to believe it. We have to embrace it in and of ourselves because we don't have an alternative path available. There is no choice in the matter. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. If she tells you that funding is not available for alcohol, please, please, please just push her out of the plane. As always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I've been joined this evening by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. We'd like to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. Should you have any questions, comments, concerns, or even topic suggestions, please feel free to leave them either in the comment section here on our YouTube page, or on our Google Plus page, or even on our Facebook page. And on top of that, I invite you to follow us at Twitter with the Twitter handle at Radio Aviation EX. One more time, folks, that's at Radio Aviation EX. And there you will find the departure board that lists my personal Twitter account as well as the personal Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. You'll find the Blogspot account that's chock full of useful information like Chuck Norris walking through land. And then there is the Cafe Press account. Jeremy, tell them a little bit about the Cafe Press account.
Okay, well, here's a little bit about it. There's a bunch of stuff for sale on there. It's got our logo on it. You can go check it out and buy it if you like. That's just a little bit about it. But seriously, folks, treat yourself to it. Treat your friends to it. Treat your loved ones to it. And show your support for the show, but more importantly, show your support for yourself. And I just have one little bit of an addition. And I know I've made announcements before, but I want to take this time to announce that I have yet another idea tumbling around in my simplistic empty head. Don't worry, folks, it won't get very far. My helmet and chin strap will make sure it's safely secure. Randy, I'm thinking about having a T-shirt made just for simply for individuals that really don't like our show, and kind of a T-shirt that looks like a piece of hate mail. All of which, folks, if anybody has any hate mail for us, along with comments, suggestions, concerns, or what have you, hate mail could also be sent to the aforementioned links and sites and addresses. So that's just a little bit about the Cafe Press account and a little bit of an announcement. So,
well, it all works for me. Folks, once again, we want to thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you again next time. Please do take care.